A Fox News alert on the president's plan to prevent school shootings, and it's coming under fire from gun control advocates. Good morning to you. I'm John Scott.
Happy Monday to you.
Happy Monday
there you
to
go.
you as well.
I'm Melissa Francis. Less than a month after the massacre at a Florida high school, amid a growing push to make changes so this sort of thing doesn't happen again, the White House now out with its recommendations, and they include calls for an audit of the FBI tip line, a commission to study raising the age to buy long guns to 21, a, quote, rigorous firearms training for qualified teachers. White House correspondent Kevin Corke is live with the story. Kevin.
Hey, good morning, guys. A very interesting proposal there by the White House, but the president is talking about it this morning. He's saying, look, we're going to wait and let the courts in the states decide what to do about raising the age limit on making some gun purchases. In fact, he took to Twitter not long ago. I want to share that with the folks at home. The president writing the following on 18 to 21 age limit, watching court cases and rulings before acting. States are making this decision. He goes on to add, things are moving rapidly on this, but not much political support, to put it mildly. He also added this tweet. I thought I would add this just for your consumption. He wrote, if schools are mandated to be gun-free zones, violence and danger are given an open invitation to enter. Almost all school shootings are in gun-free zones. Cowards will only go where there is no deterrent. Now, I want you to keep in mind the proposal to raise the minimum age obviously wasn't part of the big rollout on Sunday. In addition to the steps, by the way, that you mentioned, the White House effort to harden American schools will include a commission that'll be headed by the Education Secretary, Betsy DeVos. Again, they're trying to assess how best to address school gun violence. Here's what she had to say about that earlier.
Well, everything is on the table, and part of the job of this commission will be to study that and see if that is advanced ultimately as a recommendation in next steps. The point being, there are many steps to be taken now and additional steps that will be taken down the road as we do the work of the commission.
Betsy DeVos, the Education Secretary. As you can imagine, the Democrats are also out there talking about this. Let me share just a bit of what Chuck Schumer had to say, the senator from the state of New York. He said the White House has taken tiny baby steps designed not to upset the NRA when the gun violence epidemic in this country demands that giant steps be taken. While we have you, let's switch gears a bit and talk a little North Korea. We've been talking about that at length here at the White House. The Trump administration carefully walking a diplomatic tightrope in an effort to get the North to change its behavior, using sanctions, collaboration with partners in the region, and obviously now for the very first time, talks.
Never before have we had the North Koreans in a position where their economy was at such risk and where their leadership was under such pressure that they would begin conversations on the terms that Kim Jong-un has conceded to at this point.
I do not want to talk about Korea at all. I'll leave it to those who are leading the effort, the State Department and the NSS for the president, because it's that delicate when you get into a position like this. The potential for misunderstanding remains very high or goes higher.
Sage words there by General Mattis. You're right. You have to be very careful in sort of unpacking some of the major ideas that the administration would like to certainly get into. Some, by the way, I suspect we'll hear about this afternoon at the briefing around 2 o'clock. Back to you.
Kevin Corke, thank you.
So, as we just told you, North Korea's leader hopes to sign a peace deal with the U.S. South Korea's national newspaper reports Kim Jong-un will likely raise the issue at those upcoming talks with President Trump. That meeting tentatively set to happen before the end of May. But CIA Director Mike Pompeo, speaking on Fox News Sunday, said the Trump administration will take the lead in negotiations.
President Trump isn't doing this for theater. He's going to solve a problem. And so the location of the meeting will determine the exact timing of the meeting. The president and the team will figure out. But what's most important is what's discussed. And the clarity and the strength and resolve of this president and this administration to achieve the outcome that Americans so desperately deserve.
Retired U.S. Air Force General Don Alston joins us with more on this historic meeting. General Alston, how stunned are you that it appears, I mean, there's been no formal acceptance yet by the North Koreans, but it appears the leaders of North Korea and the United States will finally meet?
Well, John, I think that certainly it's an opportunity, and And I think the president's immediate reaction to this opportunity just shows you the clearest example of what maximum pressure is all about. And I think it's a signal to the State Department, the Department of Defense, as well as all the other nations in the region, to include North Korea. So I hope that the meeting does take place, but I also think that what we've been watching and reading and hearing over the course of the last few days can be looked at as a bit of a distraction, because I think the president is focused on solving a specific problem, just as Director Pompeo said, and that is to try to eliminate what would be a continuing danger to the world, which would be North Korea with a deliverable nuclear weapon.
So if they were to say to President Trump, listen, we'd like to keep, we will freeze our nuclear arsenal, or we will keep 6 deliverable warheads, something like that, would that be a deal breaker for you? Should we allow them to have any nuclear capability?
The regime's entire effort here, of course, is illegitimate in the eyes of the world. I think that it has proven by its erratic or a very deliberate rogue behavior that it has been presented a danger to the world through other means, with proliferation of weapons of other kinds. And I think that now that he's crossed the nuclear threshold and he's proven that he can detonate a nuclear device, we're probably only steps away from it being a deliverable nuclear weapon. And I think that would be a non-starter. I think that the only way that we're going to see progress is for us to have confidence that we're going to be walking down a road that has verifiable steps as we go along. There's a sense of urgency the president's certainly conveying, and I think that this is the way you start this process. A failure to agree to moving down this road is going to be very difficult to foresee just what the future holds in the next steps.
The president spoke about China over the weekend and its role, what it has done, what it hasn't done. I want to play some of this for you right now.
President Xi of China has really helped us a lot. They've really helped us. And because 93% of the goods come in through China going into Korea, North Korea. 93%, so that's pretty powerful. And they've been very good. They could have done more, but that's okay. I say to them, you've been great. You could do more, but they've done a lot. They've done more. China has done more for us than they have ever done for any other president or ever done for this country, and I respect that.
But it's kind of interesting. China seems to be sidelined in these negotiations.
Well, I think that China is serving its own best interests here. They have been a key player. They will continue to be a key player as this process moves forward. And as much as they're in a role that may not be well defined right now, their interests in this region are exemplified by the fact that we had the USS Carl Vinson go in and do a port call for a week-long port call in Vietnam. The Pacific Command forces that are arrayed in the region, to include the buildup that we've had on Guam over a long period of time, as well as the freedom of navigation that our Navy is doing every day. There's an additional U.S. presence in the Western Pacific that I think makes China uncomfortable as well. They'd like to have a resolution that would enhance their freedom of movement over there. So put that aside for a moment, we still have a number one problem, and the number one problem is North Korea with a deliverable nuclear weapon. And so any means to an end that can make progress to reduce that threat is a chance worth taking, an opportunity that needs to be pursued. I think the president's clearly proved his urgency as he leads this effort right now.
And just so our viewers know, you are the retired now Air Force general who was responsible for our nation's intercontinental ballistic missile force, so you know whereof you speak. General Don Alston. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And right now, staggering new numbers on the Syrian civil war, with the Syrian Observatory saying that more than 500,000 people have been killed since the war began 7 years ago. About 85% of those were civilians, while millions of others, which amount to half the pre-war population, have been forced to leave their homes. All this as Defense Secretary Mattis warns Syria about the use of chemical weapons.
We have made it very clear that it would be very unwise to use gas against people, civilians, on any battlefield. Russia was the framework guarantor that Assad would get rid of all of it. Again, either Russia is incompetent or in cahoots with Assad.
Secretary Mattis implying that any use of chemical weapons would spark military action from the U.S., as it did last year when President Trump ordered a strike on a Syrian airbase.
Massachusetts Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren ruling out a 2020 presidential run, despite lots of speculation about her future political plans. Warren also is pushing back on calls for a DNA test to prove her Native American heritage, a claim President Trump has referenced more than once.
I am not running for president in 2020. I have an election right now in 2018 here in Massachusetts. I know who I am because of what my mother and my father told me, what my grandmother and my grandfather told me, what all my aunts and uncles told me, and my brothers. It's a part of who I am, and no one's ever going to take that away.
Warren has acknowledged identifying as a minority, but denies using the status to help advance her career.
A special election deep in the heart of Trump country, now just one day away, and the Pennsylvania matchup between Republican Rick Saccone and Democrat Conor Lamb could have major national implications, giving us a preview of the all-important midterm elections. Plus, a tourist helicopter plunges into an icy river, killing all 5 passengers on board. How the pilot made it out alive.
LaGuardia 27 Whiskey Alpha is directly above the site. It appears the aircraft is inverted in the water. The aircraft is upside down.
New developments in New York City's deadly helicopter crash. The pilot telling investigators a passenger's bag might be to blame, that it could have interfered with a fuel shutoff switch. Meanwhile, we are hearing the Mayday call from that pilot. He could barely be heard over the static of his radio.
Zero Lima Motel, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Zero Lima Motel, are you okay? East River, engine failure. I'm sorry, say again? East River, engine failure. You come a little broken. Say it one more time. He had an engine failure over the East River, Lima Hotel. Okay, you require any assistance? It was a Mayday call, LaGuardia.
The helicopter making a hard landing in the East River, caught on camera here before it flipped upside down. The passengers were tightly harnessed. Police say they had to be cut out of the submerged chopper in water colder than 40 degrees. 2 of those pulled out were pronounced dead. The other 3 rushed to area hospitals in critical condition, but they died later. The pilot, the only survivor, police say he freed himself and was rescued by a passing tugboat. The NTSB is now investigating the cause of that crash.
America's election headquarters voting now less than a day away in a closely watched congressional race in Pennsylvania. It pits Republican Rick Saccone against Democrat Conor Lamb, and the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette newspaper has just endorsed Rick Saccone. In this district, deep in the heart of Trump country, Saccone and Lamb are locked in a tight race, the GOP pulling out all the stops, including having the president campaign there over the weekend.
We need our Congressman Saccone. We have to have him. We have to have him. The people of Pittsburgh cannot be conned by this guy Lamb. You just can't do it because he's never going to vote for us.
Joining us now is Hugo Gurdon. He is Washington Examiner's editorial director. It's interesting. I mean, the candidates are their positions seem to be close, or at least that's how they're kind of making it out to be. Conor Lamb seems to be running, to the right of any Democrats I've seen recently. What's your take?
Melissa, that's exactly right. Conor Lamb is making sure that he's running as a conservative. He knows that the district is, as the report just said, deep in Trump country. So he's not attacking President Trump, and he's distancing himself from the Democratic Party. His campaign signs don't mention that he's a Democrat. He's making sure that the Democratic National Committee is kept at a distance. So he's making sure that he's, apart from being, he's saying he supports gun rights and he wants to clean up Washington, but he's not saying much else, and he's making sure that the people there, the voters there, think of him as a conservative. And what's really fascinating about this is that he's showing Democrats how they might win back some of those districts and those states which were lost by Hillary Clinton when the Democratic Party was running more on identity politics rather than blue-collar issues.
If he wins, I mean, obviously the race is very, very tight at this point. I know he has endorsements from steel workers, from the union. Obviously, the president, with the steel tariffs, at least put out something to give them to go for his candidate instead, although you heard him saying there he's never going to vote with us. The Republican in the race, though, has taken another play from President Trump's book. Listen to this.
I do not believe, as Paul Ryan does, that these are entitlements or another form of welfare, as he likes to call it. And if I have anything to say, if I have the honor of serving as your next member of Congress, we will extend the same thank you and recognition, not just in words, but in actions. We will secure these rights and benefits that you have earned over the course of a lifetime of service to this country.
He'll try to be whatever Connor the Chameleon can be and try to be, more like me to try to draw votes away from me. But it doesn't work when we put the facts out there, and that's been very effective.
There you go. I mean, both sides have learned something from the president. Connor the Chameleon, some call it name calling, others call it good marketing.
Yeah, well, he's a very attractive candidate, Connor Lamb, and he's making sure that he doesn't do anything to alienate the kind of voters who voted for Trump by double digits in the 2016 election. And as you say, Rick Saccone is making sure that he's presenting himself as, close to Trump as well. The truth is, this is a very important election, both for the Democrats and the Republicans. If the Democrats can win a district which President Trump won big in, it shows them that they have the opportunity of taking back Capitol Hill, taking back at least the House in the midterm elections. Now, that would be appalling for the Republican Party on Capitol Hill, but it would be bad for President Trump as well, because without Republicans controlling the House, it would be very difficult for him to push his agenda, and the Democrats will be able to make sure that it's very hard for him to govern, and that would affect his chances in 2020.
Well, we will be watching this race very closely as a result. Sir, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Melissa.
It was a wild high-speed chase as a routine traffic stop turns into the kidnapping of a police officer, and it's all caught on dash cam video. Plus, President Trump about to embark on a historic summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, but his decision is drawing mixed media reaction. Is it the right call to agree to a meeting?
Wait till you see this, a routine traffic stop turning into what authorities say was the kidnapping of a police officer. It is all caught on dash cam video. Take a look. A backup officer seen looking in the car as another officer wrestles with two suspects in the back seat who attempted to flee. The car eventually takes off with the officer trapped inside. After more than a mile at high speeds, one of the suspects jumps out of the car and flees. The driver eventually surrenders. All three suspects were arrested. No injuries somehow were reported. Wow.
Here's another wow. President Trump's decision to meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un drawing mixed reviews in the media. While some see a historic breakthrough with the regime, others say the president is walking right into a trap.
President Trump can truly solve this problem. That would be going down as a great president. And there's no way around that.
Just getting Trump and Kim Jong-un in the same room, frankly, is a big win for North Korea. President Trump proves the experts wrong again and scores a stunning diplomatic triumph.
Our media panel now, Joe Concha, media reporter for The Hill. Judy Miller is Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative reporter, author, and Fox News contributor. So where do you fall on the scale of media opinions of this move, Judy? Is this a huge win for North Korea or a daring victory for President Trump?
I have to admit, John, I really don't understand all the criticism of the president on this one. I mean, what president has done well with North Korea? We had the 1994 framework agreement. We had 2005, another agreement that they violated. Every agreement has been violated. No president, no American president has talked to a North Korean leader since 1953. Let Donald Trump try this. Yes, it's unorthodox. Yes, it wasn't well prepared. But has anybody else done better? I like jaw better than war. And we were boxing ourselves in. So I think on this one, I want to give the president a chance. And I don't understand the media criticism. It's just as if you can't say anything at all that's good about this president.
Joe?
Phil Gramm, the old senator from Texas, once said we were a nation of whiners. And I think that can apply to our media, some of it as well, because we're profoundly accomplished at offering up complaints and saying why everything is bad with a certain kind of solution, in this case here. But to Judy's point, well, gee, the last 30 years hasn't gone too well under Clinton, Bush, and Obama. And it's why President Trump got elected, at least a partial reason. People said, look, I may not agree with everything he's doing, but Washington's broken at this point. Let's bring in somebody who just does something different. And we got to remember back to last August, by the way. Fire and fury met,
right.
you know, like the world has never seen. And people said, oh, my God, that's going to lead to World War III. Well, it appears to have led to Kim Jong-un blinking here, and we're actually talking. I think the problem now would be, John, that the expectations are set that unless Donald Trump walks out of this meeting with North Korea agreeing to denuclearize, then it's a failure. It's a 30-year problem. It's going to take 30 months of talks just to come to a solution.
The White House press secretary on Friday talked about press expectations about this meeting. Here's what Sarah Sanders had to say.
I'm glad that you guys are acknowledging a lot of the problems of North Korea, because just a couple of weeks ago, a lot of members in the press were actually elevating North Korea and some of the members of the regime and comparing them to people in the United States and in this administration. I think that is actually what put North Korea on a similar stage. No action by this administration has even remotely demonstrated a level of rise that the media did during the Olympics and through some of those stories.
Does she have a point? I mean, is it the U.S. media that put North Korea on the platform?
Well, I don't think they really did that. I think they pointed out that North Korea had scored a coup by going to the Olympics, by getting President Moon of South Korea to offer him an invitation, by being the kind of go-between. I really don't think there was a comparison. Yes, there was with Ivanka being the president's emissary, along with, the Kim Jong-un's sister.
Ivanka compared to Kim Jong-un's sister. Who's Kim Jong-un's sister? She is the director of propaganda and agitation. And to elevate her to Ivanka's level really angered a lot of people. And Vice President Pence was actually ridiculed because he didn't speak to Kim Jong-un's sister. Turns out that probably was the right move.
Yeah, fascinating developments and changing every day. We will certainly keep an eye on the prospects for this yet unconfirmed but likely to happen summit meeting.
Maybe.
Joe Concha, Judy Malin.
Thank you.
Melissa.
A suspect in a deadly hit-and-run crash on the loose, how a sanctuary city just made him a lot tougher to find. We are live with that story. Plus, the White House plan to prevent school shootings like the one in Parkland, Florida, why some say the recommendations just don't go far enough, and how the administration is responding.
Everything is on the table. There's not going to be a one-size-fits-all solution.
Right now, federal immigration officials searching for the suspect in a deadly hit-and-run crash. The illegal immigrant from Mexico released from jail after posting bond, despite a request from Immigrations and Customs Enforcement to detain him. Now, no one knows where he is. Alicia Acuna is following the story from Denver. Alicia?
Hi, John. Yes, the Denver Sheriff's Department is investigating because while it did refuse to honor ICE's request to detain this illegal immigrant, the sheriff did agree to let ICE agents know if or when he posted bond, which is exactly what did not happen on Saturday night when Ivan Zamaripa Castaneda posted the $25,000 bond for suspected hit-and-run death. The 57-year-old driver of a semi-truck, John Anderson, was hit. He died while trapped in the burning vehicle. Denver police say Zamaripa Castaneda left the scene and was found later. ICE agents put in what's known as a civil detainer request, asking the jail to hold the suspect for them because they wanted to deport him. The sheriff's department refused, saying it violated his rights and without a federal warrant would only notify ICE if he made bond. According to the sheriff, he did on Saturday and, quote, was released from Denver's downtown detention center at 5:28 p.m. Although the department alerted ICE in response to a request for release notification it received, that did not occur until 6:33 p.m. This is unacceptable, and the sheriff has ordered an immediate internal review to determine why established notification processes did not take place before Zamaripa Castaneda was released. In response, ICE said, as law enforcement professionals, we should all have the same ultimate goal in mind: to protect the public by combating criminals. ICE helps fulfill that role by removing criminal aliens from the streets and from the United States. Zamaripa Castaneda is currently an immigration fugitive, and John Zamaripa Castaneda is due in court next month, but right now, no law enforcement official, no agency says they can find him. No one knows.
Wow. What a story.
Yeah.
Alicia Acuna live from Denver. Thank you.
Sure.
Just in on the fallout from the White House's school safety proposal after the president seemed to back off increasing the minimum age for purchasing assault weapons by having a commission now examine the age issue instead. And the White House plan also defers on arming teachers, leaving that question to the state and local communities. But Education Secretary Betsy DeVos is defending the proposal.
The point is, there are pieces of legislation before Congress today that can take significant steps in the right direction. Background checks, the Stop Violence Act, they have broad bipartisan support. And the president wants to see Congress act now, take these steps today, and then let's look at what we can do as next steps beyond that. But every time we've had a situation like this, we've had a lot of discussion.
Joining us now is Richard Fowler, radio talk show host, Lisa Booth, senior fellow at Independent Women's Voice, both are Fox News contributors. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
Lisa, it strikes me that in Florida, they already acted in their state legislature, and not everybody who participated, including the governor, agreed with what they passed. But at a local level, or local-ish, I mean, it was statewide, they were able to move quickly and decisively and do something. Maybe that's the right model.
Well, you know, we'll see, Melissa. I mean, I think you look at President Trump is trying to do everything he can to keep this issue in the forefront. He's done that with various listening sessions and also sort of laying out a marker today. But I think it's a really hard argument to make that the government needs to do more when the government had every opportunity on various levels to have stopped this shooting, whether it's the 40-something calls to law enforcement about this shooter, whether it's the FBI receiving 2 tips, whether it's a Florida mental institution having evaluated him and letting him go. So, I mean, or a sheriff's deputy standing outside failing to do his job and going in to prevent these innocent children being slaughtered. So I think it's a really difficult argument and a tough sell for anyone to make the case that government needs to do more when, as I mentioned, they had ample opportunity to have prevented the shooting.
So, Richard, I mean, we've said before, there was so much screw up and disaster in this. I mean, there was mistakes absolutely everywhere you could look. Someone passed a background check that shouldn't have. There was, I mean, and all the things that Lisa said. It seems like there's room for everyone to give and everyone to make a change. They did it on a state level. You know, maybe the national level is just not the place where you can get something like this done.
Unfortunately, that seems to be the reality, but it shouldn't be, because we should be able to get some of these things done because they seem to just be plain simple common sense. For example, making sure that an 18-year-old doesn't have access to an AR-15. That's common sense, and we should be able to get that done in Washington. But sadly, there's too much politics and not enough common sense here. And I think the other problem with this president's task force, and I'm happy the president is trying to push something, but I think there's also some problem in that task force's leadership. We saw yesterday during an interview on another network where Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos couldn't answer simple questions about public education, which also speaks volumes to the fact that is she the right person to lead this task force? And I think that's a question a lot of Americans are asking themselves today.
Lisa, no matter what resolution you look at, there's on each side, there's stuff to love and stuff to hate. I mean, it strikes me as similar to the deal on Dreamers. I mean, why can't both sides get together and say, well, I hate this, I'll accept this and this if you give me this and this? Isn't that how deals are done? Why can't we do that on this?
Well, I think the bigger problem is you keep having everyone say something needs to be done, but what are those things, and would they have actually prevented shootings, and are they going to prevent future ones? And I think that's the bigger problem with this, is people are really struggling to find real solutions to actually enact change. I understand the desire to want to change things, to obviously to want to prevent these sort of things from happening. How could anyone not? But I think it's difficult to find real solutions here. And I also think it's tough because it's not just the Republican Party that is split on some of these issues. The Democrat Party is split on some of these issues. I mean, do you honestly think some of these red state Democrats that are representing rural areas where they really care about their Second Amendment rights, not only for their own protection, but for, you know, as a way of life as well, do you really think that they're on the same page as someone like Senator Chuck Schumer representing the liberal state of New York? So that's also the difficulty, is there's a divide among the Republican Party and the Democrat Party as well.
But that's why there's such an opportunity for everybody to accept something they hate and give. You could make, I mean, look at what Florida did. I mean, they changed the age limit. They did all kinds of things, and nobody liked the whole entire package, but they accepted it to get something done. Richard.
I think you're absolutely right, Melissa. I think let's look at this. Let's look at what was being proposed here. Number one, raising the age on those individuals who should be able to buy a rifle. Right now, in certain states, it's 21 to buy a handgun and 18 to buy a rifle. We could change that today and just make that 21.
What would you agree to that you hate on your side? What would you agree to that you hate?
I mean,
if the people on the right agreed to that, what do you not like that you would be willing to do?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. As a practical progressive, I think there's certain things. I don't agree with teachers being armed, but I do think that we can harden school security by having more armed guards there. I'm willing to give on that. And I think where Republicans can give is raising the age on who can get weapons and making sure that the NICS system, which is the background check system, works for everybody, and that there is a waiting period. So you go up, you say, hey, I'm trying to purchase this weapon, and there's a 3-day wait period before you to have access to that weapon. That's something that we can all agree on, and that will save the lives of these children, because we have way too many school shootings in this country, period.
We've got to go. Thanks to both of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Melissa.
John.
An unprecedented meeting about to take place between the U.S. and North Korea. How we got there, and why many are warning that it's a risky move.
Make no mistake about it. While these negotiations are going on, there will be no concessions made.